Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are here streaming live this Saturday morning, and welcome to our next session where we're going to continue to talk about the five T's, which is transformation through transparency, truth, and trust. Today's episode, we're going to get into living or standing in your truth and what that means and what that's all about. And it's a little bit different than what you think. It's not just about telling the truth or truthfulness. It actually gets a little bit deeper than that. We're really going to focus into it, give you some information, some background, some insight, and some better ways to truly clarify, look at, and maybe have some self realization about whose truth you're really living in your life and what that's all about. So stick around. Let's get into it. Well, welcome back. And as I said, we're going to talk today about living in your truth. Ladies, how are you doing this morning?
Fantabulous,
Yeah,
fantabulous.
welcome. My name is Bryan Murray. I'm the founder of Village of Voices and also the VOV Network. And I'm joined today by two co hosts. So, Bridget, I'll let you go first. How about you do a quick introduction?
Hello, world. I'm Bridgit Kinney. I am the founder and director of Building Bridges Mentor and Outreach Program, and also the director of Be Beautiful Girls Mentor Program.
Thank you. And Zuriel, how about you?
Well, hello, world. I'm Zuriel Gibson. I am your lupus coach, and I am the CEO of the Gibson Lupus Arc.
Welcome, both of you. So we want to get into this subject, talk a little bit about it, and basically talking about your truth and living or standing in your truth, and what that means, what that looks like, and that's what our focus is going to be for today. To start it, we're going to go with a definition of what we mean by truth. So we'll start with that. So I'm going to bring the presentation in, and we'll just jump to a slide where we cover that. So, what is truth? All right. Definition: standing in your truth means that you stay true to who you are, whether it's your feelings, opinions, or morals. It's an essential aspect of living a life of passion, fulfillment, and authenticity. So, for our reasons today and for the premise of what we're going to be talking about today, this is kind of the foundation of what we mean by what is truth. And that's what we're going to talk about. Anybody want to add anything on top of that or elaborate a little bit more on what we mean by this?
The definition itself speaks of your truth. Honestly, that's
Hmm.
where I feel this definition is coming from.
Hmm. Agreed. Speaking of your truth. And that's interesting you bring that up because that's one of the things we're going to dive very deeply into about your truth versus the truth and some other perspectives on all of that, which will play into this, which I think will be eye opening for a lot of people when they really start to get a grasp on how those two things can really be of contrast in their lives. And that's really what we're going to be talking about is figuring out whose truth are you actually really living as you are going through and living your life. Bridget, anything you want to chime in on that?
And I like the way you put whose truth are you living because when we started this idea, we didn't really talk about the whose truth are you living. We basically talked about our truth, the truth. And so that's a very pivotal I guess, statement. Whose truth are you living in? Because we don't often think about that until we start to get very self aware about ourselves, and we'll go into that. So I like that. Whose truth are you living?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great point. So with that said, let's move to the next slide, and this is where we're going to start to peel back this onion a little bit, so that you get an understanding and a feeling for the depth of what we're talking about. And we're going to start that by getting into a little bit more information about the meaning of your own truth and what that's about. Bridget, do you want to share that with our guests?
Okay, and stepping into your authentic truth. It's a quote by Gabby Bernstein. Step into your authentic truth because your truth will light up the world. Owning your truth is living an authentic life based on your inner wisdom rather than the opinions of others or societal measures.
Hmm.
And so, what that quote means for me is that, coming into your truth will reflect your true self, who you really are, and what you really bring to the world. And that is what God has anointed you to be. In order to give Him honor first, right? But also, which also brings what you bring into the world, what light you bring into the world.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. This is a, I like that quote, stepping into your authentic truth. Because it is about bringing some light to the world. And one of the ways that I always looked at that was to say, it allows you to, I think, achieve this level of freedom and self-expression that you don't maybe even realize you can, or that's possible when you truly start to be able to do that. And I think that that's a key component of it.
Exactly, and that's why God brought us here. He had a purpose for each of us, and I don't want to get too spiritual or religious. Well, I guess I'll do. He brought us here for a specific purpose, and so if we tend to lean against toward the side that everybody wants us to be, that's not who He anointed us to be. He anointed us for such a time as this, basically, so that we can bring that light into the world. So if we're doing anything differently, we're actually dimming that light.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. So burn bright is one way to say it, and that's absolutely true.
Can I say
Zorel, you want to chime
something?
in on any parts of that?
Yes, because I love what she said. We all do have a purpose, and the best example that has ever been put to me is that we're made up of one body. Our body part.
Hmm.
There's so many different body parts to one body. If everybody wants to be a hand, how does the rest of the body function? So you are supposed to shine in yours. Excuse me, in your space where you are, so that the whole body can function as a whole. No space, part of the body is smaller than the next, because when you're missing one part, whether you can see it or not, it stops the function of another part. So you're important no
Hmm.
matter where you're placed. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I got out of what you guys were saying and out of this quote and everything. And it really helped me. That example itself really helped me put my perspective of my purpose and what I was supposed to do in my corner of the body to do what I needed to do in the world.
Absolutely. I could not agree
Absolutely,
more. So let's
absolutely.
dive in a little bit deeper. So we're going to move on to the next slide. And here we're going to start to talk about your truth versus their truth. And this is where we really open up the can and get into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about today, because this is where we really start to assess um, some of the things that start to drive that answer of whose life are you actually, or whose truth are you actually living in your life. So let's get into that a little bit. Bridget, you want to kind of talk
Okay,
about
your
that?
truth versus the truth. Your truth, your truth is what you believe for you in your life, your morals, your feelings, your opinions. Your truth is not based on outside factors.
Hmm.
The truth has nothing to do with you or others' beliefs. It's based in fact. So
Hmm.
learning to live in truth is inspiring and empowering.
Hmm.
I will say, to me, this is situational. Brian and I, and me and my other friends have gone kind of back and forth in this, because some people tend to think that your truth may not necessarily be the truth. I will agree that it might not be the truth, but it's what you believe. It's your feelings, it's your opinions, and you stand in that. No one can stand in that for you. And so that, to me, that's just plain and simple. Your truth is your belief. The truth is fact.
Hmm.
They can stand next to each other, but they don't go hand in hand. One may have influence on the other. I will agree to that. But what you believe in, what you stand in, and your truth is what you believe in. The truth is fact.
So
Brian, you have
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Zarel, go ahead.
Israel.
So just in that opinion itself, all I heard around that word truth was perspective. Which
Yes.
how you see that, your truth, that is your opinion and your perspective on how life is for you at that moment in time. That it's truth in itself doesn't really have, we use the word truth, but it's really perspective. It doesn't have truth, because truth itself is fact. It plays in history. We can record it. We see it throughout the Bible, throughout whatever history that comes up. Whether somebody wrote it, somebody finds out the truth, somebody finds out a lie. Truth is fact. So
Hmm.
based off of what you said, I heard perspective and not truth, even though we call it truth, because it's my truth, it's my opinion. This is where I'm walking today, and yes, this is true, but because this is how your environment is made up. But again, it's your perspective. You can have two people in the exact same house, have the exact same rules, raised the exact same way and come out totally different.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
in itself is how they chose to receive what they got from their household. The truth is, your parent taught you everything the same, but yet and still, you guys both got a different outcome of what was told in at the core of everything.
Yeah.
So, what we used to say as kids was, there's his truth, my truth, and then there's the truth.
Hmm.
So that was a big thing what I had to learn when I was younger and as I was growing older, and how I had to understand other people, because I used to say this is true, but no, it was my perspective. This was
It was
my
your
opinion.
perspective. Yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the things I had in my notes: perception versus reality. Right. So it is your perception versus what is the reality, and this is where we really wanted to get deep into this, because one's perception or how you're perceiving certain things um, can become that person's specific reality, right? 'Cause that's how they see it. So from their chair, whereas another person can have that exact same experience, be there in that exact same moment, but walk away with a totally different perception of what just happened. And literally both people tell two different stories.
Yeah.
So that comes into play quite a bit when as you just said, Ron, that's a perfect way to say it. His truth, my truth, and then what really happened in that scenario really does play out quite a bit. So when we're talking about perception versus reality, or that piece, especially here at this point in this process, one of the parts I want to bring into it is talking about, and we've talked about this before, um, what can really drive a lot of this, where we don't realize it, is going back to when we talked about people pleasing, right? Because a lot of sometimes our behaviors, we start acting in a way because we want to be pleasing to people, and that type thing, and that get into confrontation, et cetera. So our behaviors start to be in that mode, so that we don't ruffle feathers, and we get along, and that we're accepted. So as we walk in that walk, we are not actually walking that walk as our true selves. So then it becomes, from a perception standpoint, who am I perceived to really be? How am I being seen by people in the world? Because now I'm not actually putting forth who I really am in those particular situations. So that's another piece of it that I think is a very important thing that we look at.
Well, I
Yes.
think on that note, I mean, a conversation I had with my sister a while back, and we've come to a better place in our life where we've been able to communicate a lot better.
Hmm.
So what I've learned is that, or what I've had to teach her, and what I've had to learn is that, just because I have this view, it never meant to hurt you. This is how I saw it. So it's about communication on how you come about in the situation, how you come out in the situation, knowing that no one's trying to be vindictive. I'm trying to tell what happened to me and how I felt about the situation. Because
Hmm.
that's honestly how you play your part in, we're all given a story. And
Hmm.
then upon giving a story, we're not supposed to hold the story. We're supposed to share the story in our experiences. So when you share those experiences, that is the truth that you came up. Perspective, like we said, that is your truth. What came about, and that's how you help somebody else by telling that testimony to whomever may come across your path who needs to hear it. So
Hmm.
therefore, it's about how you articulate that message to those out there, so that you're still living your truth, and knowing that what's coming out of your mouth is not meant to hurt. Now, understand, it might hurt your feelings, but that's something that you have to deal with, because
Hmm.
I'm telling you, I'm not here to hurt your feelings. I'm here to say, this is how I felt. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to feel like this because it's hurting your feelings. Now, we need to not be in the same group, then it's understandable. It's a mutual agreement. Okay, we don't mesh well. That's okay. But in society, what they teach us is that everybody should love everybody, everybody should get along, and everybody should be in the same pot. There were 12 tribes, and they didn't all get along. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, that was biblical. That was 12 tribes.
Hmm.
Everybody's not the same. Everybody's not in the same tribe. Not everybody needs to be in the same place. Too many parts of the body. The hand can't be the ear's best friend all the time. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I mean, it has to go in other places and be able to do other things. It doesn't mean to hurt it, but it has to happen. When we become more comfortable with having conversations and not automatically putting up this defense mechanism where you feel like you have to hold people back 24/7, then we will be able to communicate a lot better to even see that, okay, I get this is how you see it. I get how you're speaking, and you don't mean that towards me. And we won't be on the
Mhm.
defensive as much. I hope that was
Mhm.
along your lines.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I've been in a circle. I've written a book and I've been a part of an anthology, and so I've been in a circle of women that are authors, and they've told their story in their books, and they've said that the people that were part of their lives through those stories were offended, and were hurt because they brought these stories out. But they said that was my story. That is what happened to me. And yes, communication is very important because you have to um, I guess communicate with the people that are a part of that story that went along that journey with you that may have gotten offended. You have to articulate very carefully with them and say, "Hey, this is my story. It may hurt you. That it may affect you in whatever type of way, but that is something like you said, Zero, that you're going to have to deal with." And so, communication is key when you're talking about your truth and living in your truth because you're going to have that pushback.
It's so funny you said that because my sister stopped talking to me after I wrote my book.
Yeah,
So
that's most of the time it comes up. That is because you can tell your truth to people and they'll accept you all day long, and we'll go with it. We're stepping ahead of ourselves, but they'll accept it all day long. But when it affects them, then they
yeah,
want to kind of let's roll back and see, is that really what happened to you? Because I don't remember that, and I don't
exactly.
remember
And
you
that's
feeling that
selective
way.
memory, and
Yeah, and
I
so
don't remember
it
this
is
part.
important that you articulate in a way where everybody will see that this is my story. This is not your story with me or my story with you. This is just my story. And so everyone has a different story, a different perspective, and a different outlook on what happened. But you'll be the only person that has that on about you. No one
Exactly.
else can tell that story.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
absolutely.
once she understood that, we had a better arrangement because she literally did not talk to me for a while, and I was trying to figure out because we had a good conversation. All of a sudden, she just dropped off, and she was like,
Mhm.
"I read your book." I was like, "Wait, what?"
That is when it happens. That is one of the times it happens. I
Yes, it
agree.
definitely is. But we're in a better place
100%.
now, so
That's all good, right? So now
right.
this is perfect because this is exactly what I'm talking about when we say whose truth are you actually living?
Hmm.
Because those situations like that, when you've got a sibling or a old friend, a spouse, or whoever it might be, and something happens in your life where you share something or start to put yourself out there in a different way, which is shining a different light in different ways that they don't want or haven't been used to in the past, it can cause some conflict and some challenges like that. So then when that happens, if you then say, "Oh, you know what? I don't want to, have that or hurt their feelings. So I'm going to essentially step back and not be that true person or express the truth or put my feelings out there or how I felt about or an exchange or a situation that happened." That's when we start to kind of lose ourselves again. That's really what we wanted to focus in here on. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect sometimes, and it might hurt some feelings. There may be some challenges. Being able to communicate about it is the important piece, and we're going to cover that in greater detail later of how to go about as you do start to truly stand in your truth. Some ways to communicate that to make it better for all. But that's the key component of it is getting to a place of comfort that you can truly do that, stand in your truth and be okay with that and move forward in your life.
It's very
Absolutely.
dangerous if you can't. Honestly, I truly believe that as a child, I held a lot of stuff in until I couldn't. So I was the active volcano. I mean, they knew I could blow at any moment because I held so much stuff in
Hmm.
consideration of everybody else around me, and they didn't see it as being consideration because if I would have just came raw the way I was, they already thought I was harsh. I mean, they really would have thought I was something else. So the
Hmm.
fact that I held so much in until I couldn't hold anymore, that just imagine doing that as an adult. I was a child then, and you bring that into adulthood, and people who don't even know you, who don't even know what the heck is going on, and they're not even the real issue. They're just the person you're blowing up on. And then you
Mhm.
wonder why you're in this down spiral of depression and things. I can't understand what I'm going through, because you're holding on to stuff that you put on a back burner that you should have dealt with a long time ago. So I truly believe it can be very, very dangerous, because suicide attempts, people hold on to stuff thinking they're the only person in the world. Depression, thinking you're the only person in the world.
Mhm.
So many different things, thinking you're the only person in the world, and
Right.
you're not. We
Yep.
put up this defense, like, we put up this defense. I don't know where it came from. Where this defense mechanism when we were so young, that we have to put up these fences of, there's nobody who's like me, or is it that country saying, what happens in the house stay in the house? In this house, is that what that's what it is?
Hmm.
You what happens to me stays with me, because no one needs to know my business.
Mhm.
Why not? You share now. I'm not talking about some things. I mean, you guys understand what I'm saying, but sharing helps you to heal. And when you can heal, you can move forward. And when you heal, you help someone else. You're not even trying to. All you know is that you're just trying to express yourself, but you don't understand how you're helping so many other people by healing yourself. Because we're not here. We were never made to be by ourselves. We were made here for everyone else, for other
Mhm.
people. Not to say that you need to live your life for other people, but as you do you, you do better with other people.
Mhm.
And that's something I had to learn in my life.
Mhm.
And for me, it was timing, because I listened to what you were saying, and I could have, at an early age, wrote a book, or went out and talked about the different situations I experienced that brought me to where I was at that particular time in my 20s and my 30s, which is a story. But I think for me, timing had to play a big part in it, because God knew I was going to be a mentor for young teen girls and for young women, that He didn't allow me to kind of open my mouth that at that particular time, because of how harsh I would have been, and just no holds bar, and in the blame. So what He did for me is heal me, and show, and not only heal me, show me what part I played in it. So then when I was able to speak about it, I can tell my role in it as well as others. And so when I speak to my teen girls, even to the young women that I mentor, I'm able to identify my role in it, and then talk about other people and what they did to me as well. But it was, if I would have done it at an earlier age, it'd have been a blame game all over the place. I never thought about the role I played in it, and how I let it affect me, and what my actions were based on how it affected me.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
timing for me standing in my for me, timing was very important for me standing in my truth.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very interesting because there are certain people that I don't necessarily have to be role models. They can be role models for you, depending on your life, and you may like them or not like them. But I'll name a few. Oprah Winfrey is one. Tyler Perry is another. Steve Harvey also. And if you follow their stories, if you read any of their biography information, Oprah had a very tough childhood, and some of the things she experienced in her life were kind of horrific in a lot of different ways. But that's what made her who she is, but that's where she gets her strength and her energy and her motivation from, by living and accepting and openly stating these truths, right? And Tyler Perry's obviously, the just done so many great things. But at one point he was living out of his car. He's homeless, right? And same thing with Steve Harvey, in their past. But they openly talk about that age and that stage of their life and what that was like, and not having and so that's what we're talking about, is understanding that sometimes the truths that we have in our lives, in our history, et cetera, et cetera, aren't always the prettiest thing in the world, but those are the foundational pieces. That's what has created you as the person that you are. That's where you can find your strength, your weaknesses, things that maybe you can grow from it and challenge yourself with, because it is your true makeup. And as Zuriel was saying a little while ago about how we hide those things sometimes, and the mental stress that puts on us, and why we get into depressed states and suicidal thoughts and all these other things, is because We hide it so much so that because we don't want to feel like we're getting judged by it, but it's your truth. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're really talking about today, is understanding and getting to that point of accepting that and living, standing truly squarely in your truth, no matter what that looks like and where that has brought you from. And again, the pieces of that, and we're going to talk a little bit later in today's episode about the rewards of doing so, are going to be key for you, I think, in moving forward, uh, having transformation in your life and having more clarity and freedom in your life, is very important stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the next slide. We'll go ahead and bring the presentation back in, and that actually will take us to the next slide. And this is where we're going to get into talking a little bit about signs that you're not standing in your truth. So I'm going to kind of run through this real quick. And interesting enough, when I put this slide together, one of the things I decided, I'm going to put like a little box before each one. So it's like a check box. It's like, so or should I not put a check mark before each one as I kind of read through these? Uh, so first one says, uh, you ask other people's opinion before expressing your own. So that's one. Then, and a lot of times we don't realize that we're doing this or what the ramifications of that are. But what's happening is, instead of you standing up and expressing your opinion first, so that you stand on where your belief is, what your perspective of it is, etc., you hold yours back, you ask others' opinion, and then if in that your opinion gets reshaped before you then express what you have to say, then which truth are you actually living and expressing in that moment in time, right? Because you've allowed others' comments and what they've shared to reshape your opinion versus the one that where you started. So that's one to be aware of. I'm going to run through these and we'll come back and revisit them all. Uh, you are afraid of conflict, and we talked about that already, and that's pretty self-explanatory. So instead of actually standing up and saying, hey, no, I think this, I feel this, I believe that, you don't say anything in to avoid the conflict that may come from it. So is that something that you may be guilty of? uh, you go along to get along, and we spoke about that earlier, and that's people pleasing, as we talked about, and so that's one piece of it. You only interact with people who have the same opinions and viewpoints as you. And I want to definitely come back to that, because that's a key component to this whole thing. And then the last one says you find it hard to accept your own weaknesses, right? And that kind of goes back to what we were just talking about where you may have been in life, and somehow now you see that as a minus in your life or a weakness in your life, and you don't want to own it or express it or share it, because you can't grasp what that means to you, and figure out a way to be okay with it. And I think that's all important. So how about we dive into it, and ladies, feel free to jump in on any or all of these at any point in time that you might want to share or talk about.
Okay.
At one, at one point, I was all of these. all
Really,
I checked off all the boxes, literally.
really.
I was scared of conflict because I was told that I was this mean child. So conflict meant I was doing something wrong. So and then I wanted to be a people pleaser. So then I
Mm,
needed people who had the same viewpoint as me, so we didn't have a lot of disagreements or anything like that. And then of course, what does it say? You ask others opinion. So I was always asking everyone, what do you think? What do you think? Is this sound good? Does this look good? I even still do it today sometimes, just to be, well, today the reason why I do it, because I need to confirm the thought I have. If it's not the same thought and I'm feeling strong about my thought, I was like, okay, I might as well need to go with my own thought. But 9 times out of 10, God confirms my thought. So I'll be like, well, I'm cool. So, it's all good. So
mm,
I still do the first one a little bit. But yes, at one point, it was really, really bad that I could check off every single box because I was not comfortable in my own skin.
in your own skin.
I was, I was the pretty girl with no personality. I was
Mm,
pretty. I looked mean because I didn't smile a whole lot. Um, and these were all things that people in my family told me. So if people in your family tell you when you're growing up, it's like, well, you they they groom you for the world. You know, I said family is the, whether you like them or not, family is the best teacher for the world, because that's how you're going to respond to the world. Now, family knows you, family knows your background, and you can talk crazy to them, but you can't talk crazy to the world. You got to take hold of what your family said, because that's how you need to show up in the world.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize a lot of harsh things that meant me no good, I was taking out there, therefore allowing the world to take advantage of me, which is one of the reasons why I became a people pleaser, because I had to make sure people liked me so that I can move forward.
Mhm.
I had to use my face, as my mom said. She's like, use your face. You're like a bull in a china cabinet. You gotta calm down. You gotta do this. And so I allowed people to run over me, and I didn't want conflict, because that means you don't like me. That means I'm not gonna get in and do what needs to be done. And I have so much knowledge in me that I wanted to share, but no one wanted to hear in my family. So when I got into the world, I thought they still didn't want to hear me. So I clammed up a lot.
Mhm.
I just rolled with everybody else, just being comfortable, going with the flow. As people ask, "What you doing?" Going with the flow. Wherever the
Mhm.
flow takes me, that's where I need to go. Didn't realize I was supposed to be fighting the current. I was supposed to fight the current.
Right.
Didn't even realize it. But I was
Yeah.
going with the flow, hitting the rocks and all the bumps, getting all the bruises, the scrapes, and the stitches and everything else. But at this point, the way my life has been a little rocky, with my lupus journey and everything, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all my bumps and bruises that I had to go to learn how to get to this point in my life.
Yes.
So now that I can say that I used to check off all the boxes. No longer do I check off all the boxes, but I
Mhm.
used to check off all the boxes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, if you would just let me be transparent and let me go through all these steps. Let me just say this. When I was researching this topic, I did check at one time, check all the boxes. I will say this, and I tell this to people all the time. I'm pretty transparent in terms of my life story. Even on social media, I always have a true story, because most things that happen to me now, in terms of success or not with my organization or whatever I do, traveling or whatever it is, it has a backstory to it. In my life, it has a backstory, and I feel compelled to let people know the backstory, because they just, what they see is the story, the part of the story that they came in on. And
Mhm.
so I have to show them, and I have to tell them a backstory. And I guess that's why God made me a mentor, because of that. And I know that's why my journey was the way it was, because of that. I didn't even know what my truth was. I'll start off by saying that. So when I did not know my truth, yes, I was very hesitant to speak up in conversation, or even when discussing something about myself. And why? Because I had made so many what I would call bad decisions in the past, that any decision moving forward at a certain time, at a certain age, I just didn't know if it was going to be the right one. I would
Mhm.
say even up until the last 2 years, any decision I would make, I didn't know if it was the right one, because I had made so many bad decisions for me before that. So I was very hesitant to say, okay, this is what I don't like that. I don't want that. This is what I want. And so I was hesitant to speak up or speak out in conversations, even when it had something to discuss about myself or my decisions. And the voices in my head, I wouldn't listen to them, because they had been wrong. They had proven to be wrong based on the outcome so many times, until I had walked it out further ahead and saw, oh, okay, that's why this happened. Number two, I did shy away from pushback, because and people that know me all my life would know that, she gonna say it. And
Mhm.
so, and then sometimes be like, girl, why don't you just chill out? Why don't you just calm down? It's not that serious. I'm gonna say it. And so after a while, I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't say it then. Maybe because everybody's saying, she gonna say what she feels. She gonna say how she feel. And people um um didn't understand that about me, but now that they do, okay, I'm on a podcast now on hints, but but I'm gonna say what I feel. And so I did shy away from the pushback, and then I flipped into this people pleasing person. So when
Mhm.
others would say, you're doing too much, and I'd be like, okay, maybe I'm doing too much. So, and maybe I believe in too much, and maybe I value too much. Let me just calm down. And then I gave up what I needed or what I wanted to please others. And at the end of the day, I felt miserable.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, I was discontent because I didn't follow, my truth, and that haunted me for a long time till it was almost like I was in a cup, and then I was at the very top, and I was like about to bust out because it was too full. It haunted me for a long time, and I did live inside my social comfort zone, and I was so afraid to do the things that I am doing now, and I saw other people doing it, so I would just be in this little box with them, with other people that weren't doing what I wanted to do but talked about it. And
Mhm.
not saying that my friends that I'm in circles with are not now or doing everything or not doing everything, but I did surround myself with people that talked about doing everything and that didn't actually follow through. And it was comfortable for me, right? Because we all wanted to do it. We just didn't put any action to it. We all wanted to do it, and I will say this. People thought I was stuck up. They thought I was bougie. And I was really and I've talked about that in my book. I was just really insecure. I didn't feel like I belonged in this circle or in this group or with these people. So I just stayed back. And so they were, while people thought, oh, she thinks she's too good for this and too good for that. And really, I did not feel that way at all. It was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
good to be different. And I mean, it's not good if it doesn't feel good for you, but to be standing your truth is actually healthy. Just like join and I liken it to joining a fitness club. You don't want to do this every day. You go, you make the decision. It's like for me, it's an executive decision to even get out the car. So I'm in the car saying, "Oh my God, if I could just get out this car." Then that's one step closer. So it doesn't feel good for you, but at the end of the day, the results are amazing. Just like with any kind of fitness program, and you have to be willing to let go of the perfection trap of wanting to be in everything for everybody. We talked about that in other sessions. You cannot. And when you
Mhm.
don't accept your weaknesses, that's what you'll try to do. You'll try to be everything to everybody. Others can put a mirror in front of you, and then there you go again, judging yourself and thinking maybe I'm not doing this because I did do that, or maybe I'm not going to succeed in this because remember I'm not really good at that. But
Right.
when you do that, you don't focus on your strengths, and then you take the focus away from it, away from living inside your truth. And so when people put the mirror up to me now, I look deep into the mirror because it's a learning experience for me, and to look into those things and say, okay, that's true. That's what the weakness, but my truth is this. That was
Mhm.
Right.
the truth then, but my truth is this. Blase, blase. And so I'm okay with learning and accepting what they see or what the weakness was at that time.
Mhm.
Thank
Mhm.
y'all for that. Thank y'all for giving me that moment. It's busting at the seams.
Well, so Bridget, thank you for sharing that. Zuriel, same. Thank you for sharing what you shared. And there was so much that came out and like, as you said, for me, similar. The checks on a lot of those boxes, but a couple of things I want to unpack just based on your feedback, and then some of my own personal things. Um, one of the things we were talking about is the people pleasing aspects of it, and this, that, and the other thing. But you also have, I think, part of this is from a self awareness standpoint and being able to reconcile uh, your feelings, how you felt, what the experiences have been like, where you've been, all of those pieces and parts that are behind it all. And that's one piece of it. But then also, as you do bring that forward, um, being able to also pick your battles. So it's not saying that you need to stand up and fight or cause conflict in every possible moment in time, right? Because that also has a negative piece to it because that takes energy, that takes effort. And so understanding that there may be certain people, there may be certain places or positions where it's really just not worth pushing that, right? So being able to think that through for yourself and understand that, you know what, yeah, I do have a difference of opinion or I see that differently. However, in that person or in that space and in that place, it's not really relevant. So
Right.
put it down and move on, right? Don't waste your energy on that. But in those other situations where it is relevant and that's what you've determined, those are the ones you have to stand for and be accountable to, right? Another one, Bridget, you said I thought was great, and that was talking about uh, being with a group of friends or in a social circle and not stepping forward and being you, right? You cower back in the corner and they start to, and this takes us right back to where we started, which was great, and that's why I made a note of that. That's the perception versus reality, because their perception of you
Mhm.
was you're bougie and you think you're better than us, blah blah. But that wasn't the reality of it
At
at all.
all.
The reality of it was totally the opposite. You were uncomfortable in that situation just because you didn't feel like you were ready or worthy or able to interact in that particular group, right? So that's the communication piece of it, and being able to put that shield down or take the armor off, which we've used that term before, and open yourself up to express those things. Because how else are others really going to know if we're not willing to open up and express and share what we're really thinking and what we're really feeling? So that's what we mean when we talk about the truth, right? Peeling
Right.
back and then being willing to put that out there. Because otherwise, you do get in these situations. And that's a great example of they see one thing and it's totally not what it is, but that becomes a void or a rift between the group
Mm-hmm.
because no one really is seeing the truth of what's really happening in that particular situation.
Well, now I'm bougie for other reasons, which are true. Um, but it just taught me how to be bougie. And so when I sit in my truth now, I know why I'm bougie, but for different reasons now.
Right.
I
Right.
digress.
Quite all right. Anything else you want to add on this slide before we move to the next?
Now, I think it's important in our audience who's watching that to really look into those slides and go back to review them if you can, and think about those things in terms of how you're living, how you're walking through your journey right now,
Mhm.
and look at are you afraid of conflict? Like some people just say I don't like drama, or some people will say I don't like all that going back and forth. Think about that. Are you backing down in your truth? Are you just, if you don't like drama, then that's fine. If you don't like conflict, that's fine. But sometimes conflict is necessary just so that we can get to the meaning of the thing. And you have to stand in your truth in that, even if it's going to be some pushback and you can't get along to go along with everybody. That is not how you get to where you go, your happy place, so to speak. I'm making light of it, but your happy place, you can't get there going along to get along.
Yep. No can.
So
Yeah.
tag on that, and that's something I think is very important. Sometimes we call it our truth, but we haven't even went deep enough to see what our actual truth is.
Hmm.
So we go off the surface of, well, I'm comfortable over here, so this must be my truth. That doesn't make it your truth. You actually have to find out what's going
Why?
on and your why, what's going on deep within you to make the decisions that you're making, the reason why you're even moving forward. Not because you're just comfortable with it, because it's not about you just being comfortable with it, it's about you finding out what the actual truth of the situation is. And
Hmm.
then
And I,
once you
yeah,
find that out, yeah,
I
once you
will
find
agree. I had a discussion with someone about that, and sorry to interrupt you. And they were talking about, well, you got to figure out why that's your truth. And yeah, you do have to figure. That does not change it. I mean,
no,
it does not change it. Even if it was some outside forces that made you determine this is your truth, it does not change that it's your truth. Yeah, you
no,
need to find out why, and who all play has is a character in that, so that you can reel
your
that back into who you are, not
Hmm.
who they are based on who you are based on them or other outside sources. But so it is necessary that you do kind of do a bigger dive into why this is your truth, but it doesn't change your truth.
Right.
we need to stop lying to ourselves. Basically, that's honestly what it is. We lie to ourselves entirely too much, to make ourselves comfortable in whatever situation that we're in, because it's like, okay, this is where I think I fit. So you're gonna lie to yourself about all the stuff that you've gone through, been through, going to go through, just so you can fit in this spot because you believe that's where you believe at that moment that's where your truth lies, instead of digging in deeper. Why? Because we've been taught to fear those things that are deep, to be
Yeah.
ashamed of them, to be embarrassed by them. And it's you as an individual. No one can be you, and you are definitely needed in this world. So
Mhm.
stop lying to yourself, because as long as you're lying to yourself, you're not living in your truth and you're lying to others.
Right. I was talking about a deeper dive, not a bigger dive. You do have to dig deep in that. And a lot of people are easy with that because it's comfortable, right? If I'm just
Right.
gonna just accept
It's not about
this
comfort.
surface person who I am, and that's comfortable for me. Not only that, it's comfortable for people around me in my household, then let me just stay here. But like I said, at the end of the day, you're miserable. You're not
Mhm.
content. You're very discontent, and it will haunt you. And you said people need to stop lying to themselves. I had to say, hey, I don't like this anymore. I don't want this anymore. And then it's like, well, would it timed out? No, I really didn't. I never liked it, but I
Mhm.
made myself believe I did.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny you said that and talking about, not liking yourself or lying to yourself. And I just was reading a thing the other day and they made this comment and I was like, man, that's a very true statement. And you often hear when we're talking about personal growth and self-development, and one of the things that they put out there a lot is, the person in the mirror, which is you, right? This is a challenge between you and the person in the mirror and how you're going to change that particular individual. um, and then they said, unfortunately, for most of us, we go through life to be comfortable, so we don't really have to deal with it. We deal with the person in the mirror that we see right after you get out of the shower. So the mirror is all foggy. So you actually really can't see the person in the mirror. And
Mm.
that's
Mm,
the analogy that they use. So
Wow.
yeah, you're looking in the mirror, but you really can't see yourself. So you're not actually digging down to say, all right, what are the truths within me and my life and my beliefs and what I stand for, what I believe in, and that piece of it. And that goes back to what Zuriel was just saying. That's that self lie that we live,
mm-hmm,
and we're not being truly forthcoming with everything that's there and the root causes, and digging down to get to those root causes of different things. And again, until you really accept that, you how can you expect to change or transform if you're not actually going to get down to the foundational pieces and start to rebuild from there, because that's really what it's
absolutely,
going to take.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go back to the presentation. We'll move on. So we've now looked at, the definition of the truths, the differences between the truth versus your truth, some of the signs that maybe you're not standing in your truth. Well, now let's look at turning the corner. So and starting to go, are the things it's going to take to start to climb back up that hill so that we can move forward. So this is the reward piece. And Bridget, you want to cover that for us?
Yes, and I love this piece because it's at the end of your journey, right? In self-awareness, your reward. You create a realization of self. You bring a sense of peace into your life. You face your fears. You open your heart. You are real. And like I said before, when I started to research this topic and when I got to those points, those really powerful points in this topic, it was exciting for me because it kind of revealed where I am right now in my life. I mean, and so the five T's all the way through kind of reflects how I am in my where I am in my life right now. And I will start with just on my opinion on number one. You become self aware, and when you become self aware, you sharpen your knowledge of who you really are. Who
Hmm.
About
you
mine.
really are, who you really are. I always talk to my girls about holding up that mirror, and when they hold up the mirror, and we do an exercise with that, and tell me who you are, or tell me what you see. And so people next to them will start saying stuff because you're reluctant, you don't know what to say, right? Because you never really looked at who you really are, or say anything about yourself that will empower yourself. And so you listen to them, and then you start to say, I'm no, not what they say, because they can't even see the mirror. You look into the mirror, what do you see? And so,
Right.
Hmm.
not what they're saying to you, because they can't see the mirror. They see you holding the mirror. So when you become self-aware, you sharpen the knowledge of who you really are. And then that in turns bring peace. And y'all know I say it's the peace for me
Hmm.
all the time.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
the peace for me. That's after you've gone through all this initial combativeness from others, even the comeback from the voices in your head.
Yeah.
That's it, it's the peace for me, and that goes into facing the fears. You become more stronger than the fear of others controlling what you think. And that was a big thing for me, like I said before, because I wasn't really sure about my decisions based on my past and the results of my decisions, that I did not make a lot of decisions on my own without consulting with maybe three or more people. And so I became stronger in my fear of others, controlling what I think. And you have to have the nerve to speak up and show your heart. And that goes into being vulnerable, honest. We talked about that before, and transparent. It's about understanding the value that you bring to the world, the value that you bring to the world. And that's a reward within itself. And the last one is you are real. I always say you get what you see. You see what you get. I mean, you get what you see with me. This is who I am, Monday through Sunday, every night, every morning. I mean, I may get quiet. Believe me, I'm in my thoughts. And then most of the time I'm talking a lot. So you get what you see with me. I'm not one way because I don't know how to keep up with those things. I'm not one way. One with a certain social group is it another way. So they say, "Oh, she don't even act like that at home." I'm the same way all the time. And so when you stand in your truth, you're real. You're real with yourself. You're real with others. You're confident in your strength. You're confident in the unique parts that you play in this world. You're true. You're true to yourself, even on the bad parts about yourself. You're true to that. And your truth telling becomes like a gift, right? It's a gift to yourself and not an offense to others. You talked about zero about offending other people. It's a gift to yourself, and it's not that you're offending others, but you have to stand in it so that you can, because you reached a place of healing from whatever that was. And when people hold up, like I said, up a mirror to me, I am who I am. And even if at the point back then when they walked in on my story, or if they walked in before it got good, I am that person. But this is where I learned, and then it got gooder and gooder. That's my own English dictionary.
English.
It got gooder and gooder. So I'm willing to look deeply into that mirror to see what I can learn from myself. And honestly, even your worst critic can start with the grain of truth. With the grain of truth. So that is how those are the rewards for me.
Zuriel, anything you want to chime in on? Anything on this list?
I want to chime in a different way.
Okay.
Because I see the rewards. I've been told what the rewards were, but I was still stuck in how to get there, or believing that this could never happen for me. And in the midst of, I mean, you guys know I'm a lupus survivor, and I've gone through a lot of processes in trying to get to who I am today and believing in what God has for me and my purpose. And one thing he had told me was, sit back and look at everything you went through, and then look where I was and what I brought you through. So that's how I want to come at these rewards. People saying that, well, this can't relate to me. The realization of self, because I'm not worth it. I can never see myself not being able to face my fears or to open my heart to live in that situation. At this point in your life, you already have. And we failed to even realize how much we have actually accomplished in life because we're so stuck on a negative thought that we look past all of our positives. And I said, if one negative thought, it takes about 5 or 10 positive thoughts to negate a negative thought. Somewhere I read, and this is why affirmations are so important, to repeat them to yourselves, because one, we can hear people say stuff all day long. They mean it from the bottom of their heart. They're trying to hug on you, love on you. And as you see is what we're talking about here, and then showing you all the pieces that you can go through, be transparent with yourself. Then you'll get to these rewards. And some people are still just not seeing it. And it's sad, but it's true. And I can say that because I've been there, and the truth of the matter is, like I said, I'm 44 years old, and I can look back like God told me to do. Look back to see the times that I was with you. He taught me that there's peace beyond all understanding. The time that I was on my way to the hospital, scared to death before, but then God put a peace in my heart. Who understands that? They tell me I'm about to die, but I have no fear in my heart.
Mhm.
You know, God telling me he would never leave me nor forsake me. I didn't have a normal support system like
Mhm.
most people do, with all the family that understands or tries to read up on it and be by your side and things like that. But God showed up on the scene as my support system to show me that he would never leave me nor forsake me. You know, and then he showed me where my strength lied by showing me the Holy Spirit that was in me, and showing me that I stood in places that I said I didn't think I would ever stand in.
Mm.
He had to open my eyes and be like, "You, yeah, that was you. You stood right there, and I gave you that strength in that position." So when we actually look back on all the stuff that we said we couldn't do, realize that you're still standing and you did it.
You did it. Yeah.
So
Yep.
the rewards you see, you've already accomplished. So don't think about it just being a list and be like, well, I can get to that. Yeah, there's levels to everything. I mean, there's levels to you. It's like a job. I haven't had a job in so long. Y'all forgive me. So it's like a job. You have the entry all the way up. There's levels to everything. You got to learn something new. You go through something new, and every time you think it's something different, it's really not. It just looks different, but it's actually the same. So
Mm-hmm.
you've already accomplished your rewards. You're just going to the next part. You might need to learn something else about yourself that you didn't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Open yourself up like you did the last time and keep moving. Is it scary? Heck yeah. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
lie. It gets scary, it gets hard, but true enough, it's just something else that I know I can get through based off of what God showed me I've already been through that I never thought I would make it to see on this side. Mind you, they told me I would die at 24. I tried to live my life to the absolute fullest, like I was about to die. And then
Mhm.
I didn't die. And I was in awe, like, okay, what do I do now?
What I would do now. Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ask yourself that question. What do I do now? You're still here.
Right.
You woke up this morning.
That's a good
Okay.
question.
You know,
That's a
Mhm.
really good question.
every morning you wake up and you didn't pass away like so many others in their sleep or being ill or whatever they had to go through. Ask yourself in the morning, okay, what happens next?
Mhm.
How do I live for today? Yesterday is gone. We can't get it back, but today is here. Don't worry about tomorrow because it will take care of itself. But how do I live today?
Today. Yeah. Stay in the moment.
In the moment. That's
Yeah.
A
what I
lot of
got.
Absolutely.
a lot of times I've told people don't I've made an analogy, don't look back because you're not going that way, but also sometimes you need to peek back there to see how far you've come, and also
Well,
what's
yeah, that's
behind.
what I
Yeah,
just said. But
yeah,
yeah, you
to
understand.
see, you have to look back there sometime to see how far you come. You're not gonna keep staring back there so you can walk into a wall or run into a wall. You're not gonna keep looking back there, but sometimes you got to peek back there to see how far you've come based on where you are. So I like that. Don't look back, and sometimes you have to just to see how far you come and what do you do now
And
and
you
what
made
do you
it
do
through.
now.
You here.
Mhm.
You here this far. You peep back, like you said. You peep back just enough to say, "Hey, I actually made it through that."
Yeah,
Not
Mhm.
not
yeah.
just
And
change
what's
it, but to
behind
say
you?
I made it
Yes,
through that. That was my
yes. What's
time to
behind
change
you?
what I needed to change in that moment. So you
Absolutely.
can't. We always have that voice in our head. Well, you should have did this, and you should have did this. Okay, well, look, it didn't work out. It didn't happen. Okay, if it comes up again, then I know what to do. But right now, I'm moving for today. So
Yeah.
as far, take
I
your
used to do that. Like I would be full of thoughts of what I should have did, and when I got rid of those thoughts, it was so clear. It almost was like a nasal spray or something. It was just clear. It was like,
Right.
okay, well, you didn't do those things, so now you got to breathe and
Right.
Mhm.
move forward. You're not that place anymore.
Not
That
that
is
Absolutely.
a
part.
great one. That is a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to add on top, and we've talked about looking backwards, and I recently was just again reading something. They were talking about that very thing in life and saying, why is it that, and then they use the analogy of driving a car, and you've got a rear view mirror that's this big, right? And you've got a windshield that's 5 feet across, and we in the rear view mirror, right? Looking behind us versus looking at this vast opportunity that we have in front of us moving forward, looking
Yeah.
out the windshield and staring at the rear view mirror. all- Chances are you're going to run into something because you're not focused on the wrong thing. And then you're also dragging now. And again, this is key. Yeah, you do need to look back there to make sure it's safe when you want to change a lane or do this or do that. Those are the lessons that you've learned that you do want to bring along with you, because that's where the value of looking back is. But
Right.
if that's truly where you stay focused and you're completely ignoring all of the opportunity that's there in front of you, looking out the windshield, that's when you can really get lost and uh, living in the past and that whole thing, which is not the place you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the rewards. That's what we wanted to talk about. And Zuriel, I think that's a great approach to say that we can get in that space of, I've been told it, I've heard about it, but it's not for me, or I can't get there, or those types of things. So you're having that kind of self-talk, and it is important that you start to be honest and open and work with yourself to start to move in this direction to reach those rewards as you move forward.
Yes.
Honesty is the key word. Honest with yourself and those around you. Honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Hmm.
absolutely. So final slide for today, and this brings us to our question of the day. And it's, what benefit or benefits of stepping into your authentic truth are you most inspired by, and why? So who
Freedom.
wants to go first?
I'll say, as I've said, and I will always say, it's the peace for me. And the internal joy, not about the material things around me, the people around me, who I affect because I stand in my truth, who I positively affect because I stand in my truth. But it's just the internal joy for me. I mean, it's almost like a weight lifted, or an exhale, so to speak. You can be your true self without harming anyone or belittling what others think or feel. That's their truth, but your truth is liberating. And it has been standing in my truth. And I haven't always been, let me be very transparent. I haven't always been, and like I've said, maybe in the last 2 years, certainly in the last year, because of different situations that I've had to stand in my truth. And it has just been so liberating for me. And it has brought so much peace for me that I really thought I knew what peace was before, up until now. So
Hmm.
that has been the reward for me.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to use another word because she said it. Freedom.
Hmm.
Freedom in mind, freedom in body, freedom in your atmosphere. Because is once you have that freedom, you gain all this peace. You allow yourself to be free enough to have peace. You give
Mhm.
yourself permission to have peace.
I love that word, permission. Ding, 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 ding. I love that word.
You know,
Yes.
you've got to give yourself permission. You know, no one can do anything to you unless you allow them to. That's including control your emotions.
Hmm.
So if you allow yourself freedom, you will have peace of mind, peace in your heart, peace in your body. You know, people get healed behind peace.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Just having the peace within themselves, all of a sudden their body feels so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And people be like, oh no, that's just a mental thing. Yes, your body is made up of mental. And
Mm-hmm.
that affects a lot of different functions in your body.
Yes, it does.
You know, so when you have that clarity in your mind, it just, I mean, there's no other word I can really want to use right now other than it's freedom, because
Hmm.
it's a lift off your heart. You know, that stress that you've been holding on to, and your body's tight, where everybody's going to get massages and spa things and all things like that because your body's tense. Let go. Let go. And I know sometimes it's easier said than done, depending on what you've been with. But like we were talking today, own up to your truth. You will get free. You will have peace. You will have less tension, and you won't need all them other expensive treatments. Don't come for us on here, but you know what I mean.
They'll come for you. I mean, it'll say you 80, $150, but if you need it, if you need it for physical need,
Therapy.
that's totally different. That's totally different. But if it's just a little thing that you just need to let some things go, yeah, it'll save you $150. So yeah, free. I love the word freedom. It's not free like people say. It is not. You have to go through the steps, but once you get there, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And so take the steps to get there. It is freedom. In order to have peace, you have to go through that freedom process as well.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
That I like that.
So I had three words written down. The first one was peace. The second one was freedom. So we're all on the same page. But the third word I had, so I'll go with that one, is empowerment.
Mm,
It gives you a level of empowerment
it
that
does.
is absolutely amazing. It's a breath of fresh air. It's a certain amount of energy. It's like a suit of armor, because you feel so empowered once you are truly in that space of standing in your truth. Um, and the last thing I want to say for me is as a takeaway, and this is, I almost call it a word of advice, or a way of summing up what I have gathered from today. And I made a note, and it just says, burn bright. So,
Mm,
whatever that means to you in your life, however that comes across in your life, think of it from that standpoint. Burn bright. It doesn't matter what other people think about how bright you're burning, that you're burning too bright, etc., etc., etc. Just live your life in a way where you are burning bright. That means you're doing the things that you want to do for yourself. You're giving back. You're being an important member of society. All of those pieces and parts are tied into burning bright. So that's my takeaway, and again made that note for myself.
I love the burning bright preach. I love that because people say I do it the absolute most, and I said, well, you should. You should not be doing just enough or less than. So I mean, come on board. It'll change your life. But I've been told that I'm just this ball of sunshine, and nobody is that positive. No, some days you will catch me in
mm.
the wrong space that you may not want to be on. But it's a flip
Like
side
I
to
am
that.
still human.
I am still here. We're gonna go through the hard part, but it's the other side to that. When we get to the go through that hard part, we have to have that hard conversation so we can get to that good conversation, right? To that positive conversation. So yeah, burn bright. They say I post a lot. They say I take too many selfies, and I will suffocate you. Yes, if you're with me, we're gonna do a selfie. That's just who I am, and that's who I've always been since selfies came into play. But I've been this bright person, and I think that is a benefit for others because you then pass it on to someone else. When they get their lowest point, they can look at you and say, "Hey, she went through," and I'm never afraid to tell my story and where I came from. And so if you have a piece of that in your life, you can say, "Okay, she went through that, and then she came out like this. I'm not looking and not smelling like anything that she went through, and then I can too." So as you said, Brian, burn bright because it's going to affect someone else. Some people might put their shades on, but some people want that warmth.
Absolutely, absolutely. Take,
It's not
as
like
you
I
said,
can
if you
say everybody.
if you change one life and take them forward with you, then it's all worth it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, ladies, this was awesome. Thank you. And as we said, the takeaway question with this is, whose truth are you actually standing in and living? And that's what you want to answer. We've given you some great ways, some great tips, what the reward is of that. And again, as they said, the freedom, having the peace, and also the empowerment to burn bright and live your life the way you truly should live it. And that's the key. And that's what we want everyone to take away from today. I think that's all we have. Anything else I want to share?
It was a great session. I hope
Absolutely.
the quiet noise was because our audience is in their thoughts. So that's a good thing. You want to think about that because the next time we join, we'll be talking about trust. Um, and so I hope that y'all are in your thoughts. Please go back and look at this video and think about do some inner inner evaluation and where
Yep.
you are in your truth.
Yep.
Thank you
Absolutely.
guys for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate
It's my
Thank
it.
pleasure.
you. This is awesome. If everyone out there, please like, share, and also subscribe on YouTube. But if you know someone who would benefit from the messages that we share and the information that we shared today, absolutely uh, send them a link to the video, point them in our direction, because that's what we're here. It's all about giving back and helping everyone out there, and whatever guidance we can provide from our experiences. That's kind of the whole point. So I want to thank everyone who did watch us and stick with us live. If you see this on the replay, again, leave comments. We'll be checking in for any comments and definitely giving you feedback. as we all continue to move forward. So until then, everyone stay blessed. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon, right?
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.